see that?
Oh, yeah.
I want it. I want it. I mean, you don't gotta wrap it. You don't gotta send it. Take it home now, as is.
You're crazy, man. That's a no sale.
What? We're live. We don't start back for another month. Oh, hey, the burning's on. Oh. Well, one more won't hurt. I briefly touched on 1981's The Burning almost 2 years ago as part of the B-Movie Hall of Fame series, but since watching it, I've always wanted to expand my thoughts on it just a little bit. In part because there's a lot that I just didn't have time to unpack in the group review, and in part because I wrote those reviews slightly differently to how I generally write reviews. And with it being 2 years since I last saw it, which was in fact the first time I'd ever seen it, I thought now would be a good time to dust it off and give it the once over again, but properly. I'm actually writing this review having not rewatched my earlier video on this movie, though I will rewatch it once this review's written to see if my opinions have shifted on this somewhat. I wanted to give you as fresh a take on it as I possibly could, and I didn't want to feel like I was cribbing my own notes. There's often a serious taboo mindset about critics re-reviewing movies. Seriously, there's a subsection of people out there who believe that what a critic writes once is set in stone and that's it. No second takes, no rethinking. You get one shot and that's your lot. Well, I don't roll that way, and I firmly believe that people are able to change their minds and opinions about things, especially films. Not that I remember what my initial thoughts on this film were in fairness anyway, but you get the point. Anyway, The Burning is a 1981 slasher movie that exists slap bang in the middle of the slasher genre's golden age. Business was booming, with major franchises like the Friday the 13th series and the Halloween films seriously gaining traction. Everyone wanted a slice of the pie, so to speak, enter Miramax Pictures, an, at the time, relatively small film company that had just started producing movies the year previously. Seriously, at this point they had 2 films under their belt. Rock Show, which was a concert film for Paul McCartney and Wings, and Spaced Out, a late 70s sci-fi British sex comedy movie directed by Bloody New Year's own Norman J. Warren. They were on the lookout for a big hitter, and in the slasher genre they thought they'd found their motherlode. The Burning opens at Camp Blackfoot as we begin the movie with a flashback to 5 years ago, when a group of campers decided to play a practical joke on Cropsy, the summer camp's caretaker. We don't see much of Cropsy, but we're told and shown through the film that he was a sadistic alcoholic who liked to torment younger campers. The prank, involving a fake severed head with candles for eyes, is supposed to get Cropsy back for weeks of torment. They leave it on a table near his bed while he lies passed out, before waking him up for the fright of his life. Unfortunately, the prank backfires, however, and the head falls onto Cropsy's bed, setting it on fire, which then ignites a nearby gas canister, erupting the entire cabin into a ball of flames. Cropsy flees the cabin completely ablaze and is rushed to hospital with severe burns. We then cut to 5 years later, and after multiple failed surgeries and skin grafts, Cropsy is released from the hospital, only for him to develop a murderous streak and the urge to seek vengeance on all summer camp kids, young and old. A short time passes and a camp near to Camp Blackfoot opens its doors for its yearly arrivals. Little do they know that Cropsy is waiting for them. And when it's revealed that some of the camp counsellors who were working at this new camp were at Camp Blackfoot when the legend of Cropsy was born, well, you can guess where this is going. There's wrong-footing, twists and turns, and plenty of super gruesome murders culminating in the murderous rampage that takes place when the older campers are allowed to take a 3 to 4 day trip to Devil's Creek, a more or less isolated area of the wilderness. The only camper who seems to know that something isn't right is Alfred, but he's resoundingly ignored because near the beginning of the film he's caught perving on a couple of girls in the shower rooms. And, just as a heads up, that's the least rapey thing to happen in this movie. But more on that later. As the bodies begin to pile up, it falls to Alfred and a male camp counsellor Todd to confront the killer, if it is indeed Cropsy, and put an end to this burning legend of horror and death. Oh come on, I'm allowed one pun. I'm supposed to be on vacation. The Burning was written by Harvey Weinstein, who you may remember as the guy who won the Golden Globe for Best Male Actor earlier this year for his role as frail man on Zimmer frame in the smash hit Diddler's Comeuppance. Look, I'm all for separating the artist from their work as a rule. I do it to Woody Allen, I do it with Michael Jackson. But Weinstein, by all accounts, is just a terrible human being who's done irreprehensible things and used his power to manipulate and control the film industry for years. He's an awful person, which makes it near impossible for me to objectively talk about his work without mentioning that he's a convicted rapist. And a person who's happily and quite publicly manipulated people into situations they didn't want to be in. As such, I'm not going to talk about his time as a producer, mainly because he wasn't a producer on this film, and mainly because I don't want to give any kind of sense of prestige to him. Weinstein has written 2 movies, this film and 1986's Playing for Keeps. The film was also co-written by the film's director Tony Maylam, Bob Weinstein and Brad Gray. None of these people though have a particularly massive writing history, with Brad and Bob between them having 3 writing credits and Tony having 11, which mainly consists of documentaries or live recordings of music concerts. The reason I mention this now is because the script, well, it's problematic. Ethically problematic. You see, all our main characters in this movie, with the exception of Todd, are, well, quite rapey. To an uncomfortable level. Whether it's Eddie, a guy who spends literally a massive chunk of the movie perving on one of the female campers only for her to relent slightly, which in turn makes him see that small action as a cue to start porking. Glazer, the big dumb musclehead of the movie who keeps literally forcing himself onto one of the girls while she desperately tries to get him to leave her alone, which culminates in a very uncomfortable scene where she basically promises him sex as long as he leaves her alone. Or Dave, who's supposed to be our good guy friend of the hero type role in this picture, who also spends a good chunk of the movie perving on the women and just saying off things to them, like trying to sell them spermicide or trying to hit on them at regular intervals. Alfred is our most likeable camper character in this picture, and even he's a peeping Tom. In any other summer camp movie, these kind of characters would be a bit unusual but not out of sorts. But knowing that it's written by Weinstein, and also just how ramped up these characters are, adds a whole new dimension to this. It makes it extremely uncomfortable viewing to me and really changes the vibe of the movie. I really can't let that go, which really works against it in my opinion. From a purely plot-based standpoint, this film's got reasonable pacing, it's got an okay 3-act structure, some nice set pieces, and really nice flowing dialogue. For the time, it would have been pretty genre-defining, though with all the summer camp movies that came after it, it's a little on the generic side looking back. I'd hesitate in saying it's a great movie, but it would almost certainly be watchable if it wasn't for all the sexual stuff. Seriously, it's really messed up in places and really turned me off this movie in a big way, because just as I'd settle into it, up would pop some molestation scene that would totally kill the buzz. If you can overlook that nasty stuff though, you'll find a pretty alright, if not a little light on the story side, summer camp slasher. The Cine is relatively solid, there are a few really nice establishing shots, and most of the kills are handled with close-ups, which really let you get up close and personal with the mutilations and gougings on display. I also like how soft this film looks. There are moments that have a real dreamlike vibe about them, particularly the killer's POV shots. It's not out of sorts for this kind of genre. I mean, Black Christmas was doing POV slasher shots nearly 10 years previously, and outside of the horror genre, it had been a staple of the thriller movie genre for decades. But damn it, I like its use here, and that's all that matters really. The direction is a bit of a mixed affair in all honesty. It's competent, and I can say hand on heart that in some places it looks genuinely quite impressive. Tony Maylam oversaw the direction of this, and at this point in his career he'd got a few live and documentary credits under his belt, but this was one of his first features. While he didn't really go on to do many more features beyond this, he clearly shows himself to be a dab hand, as he has great control over the cast and really uses the sets and locations to their fullest potentials. In particular, the shots in the mine shaft towards the end of the movie and the shots around Devil's Creek look fantastic. But rather disappointingly, the kill sequences, oh good lord, they're messy. It looks like they just tossed all the rushes into a bin, shook it up and assembled them in whatever order they were pulled out in. There's no structure, no rhyme or reason, shots just happen. And the cuts during these sequences are almost seizure-inducingly quick. It's like they thought if they cut it quick enough, no one would notice just how sloppily they were arranged. I know why they've done this. They wanted to give the death scenes a frenzied feeling, like the killer's lost control and is just going berserk. But even these moments need to be structured, otherwise it just doesn't look right. And here, it really doesn't look or feel right to me. The practical effects, for the time, are pretty damn impressive. Effects here were handled by the maestro of horror himself, that is, Tom Savini. And for the time, he knocks it out of the park. Cropsy's withered and burned face features some gorgeous sculpting, and the prosthetics used in the kill shots ooze hammer blood and have a distinct over-the-topness that really gives another much-deserved notch to Savini's belt. Modern audiences, however, will probably think this movie looks pretty fake and almost entirely hilarious, so do bear that in mind when going in here. The soundtrack, handled by none other than prog synth god Rick Wakeman. And while it's not exactly groundbreaking work, I think Wakeman totally nails this score. It sounds perfect for a slasher movie in the early 80s, with great synth strikes and powerfully moody pieces that really help to punctuate the eerier moments of this feature. While I can't say it's his best work, it's the kind of thing I'd probably listen to while I'm working on scripts. It's just got a good, solid construction around its arrangements that really made me warm to it. Finally, the casting, which, I mean, given what happens in the script, is damn near perfect. Larry Joshua absolutely nails it as the thick as ham, punch now, ask questions later, horny as hell Glazer, offering a macho tough guy routine to a film that really didn't need it, but playing the role with such a solid conviction that it left me genuinely impressed he was able to play that level of arsehole so consistently. Brian Matthews also steals the picture as Todd, the head camp counselor for the boys, who's stern when he needs to be, but also has a slightly assholey streak running through him as well, allowing the boys will be boys mentality to persist through the camp. It kind of makes him a flawed hero here, and even though I didn't 100% like him, which is kind of the point of his performance, ultimately he made it work. It's a fantastic multi-level performance that really holds up. The real star of this movie, though, is Jason Alexander's Dave. Seriously, he owns every scene he's in, he comes across as a genuinely likeable and happy-go-lucky guy, well, when he's not perving or making the female campers feel a bit uncomfortable. He has the best one-liners, and just when the film begins to feel like it might be starting to grate on me a bit, you could always count on him popping up to help smooth over any frustrations. He's the glue that holds this picture together, and in my opinion, he saves it from becoming a chore to watch at multiple points throughout this. But Dan, I hear you ask, what about the death scenes? How many are there, and are there any good ones? And just what would be my odds of surviving this movie if I was inserted into it? Well, to help me out in dissecting the dissected, here's my good buddy Ghostfake from over on the Survivours Guilt YouTube channel to give you the full skinny. Take it away, SG.
So now, to find out, what are your chances of suffering survivor's guilt? This is where we take a look at our main characters and the death that surrounds them to determine what your chances are of surviving this movie. Cropsy starts his meat bank deposits with the prostitute he kills upon his release from the hospital, followed by Karen as deposit number 2. Then we have this raft of campers made up of Eddie, Fish, Woodstock, Marine, and Barbara, who set out to head back to the main camp but spring at Cropsy when they find one of their missing canoes, accounting for meat bank deposits 3 through 7. We then add Sally to the pile when Cropsy sneaks up on her post-coitus at number 8, followed quickly by her boyfriend Glazer upon his discovery of her dead body at number 9. And finally, our last deposit in the meat bank is Cropsy himself, who gets axed in the face and set on fire to ironically finish what the first batch of campers started, making him the 10th deposit into the meat bank. Undoubtedly, every other one of the more popular slashers would have survived this and gone on to at least 6 more installments of the franchise, but not Cropsy, though it's never too late for a sequel. But as far as survivors go, let me briefly explain how I do things if you're not familiar with my channel. I only count the main characters or anyone who appears to be significant enough that they stand out as important. If a character could be played by a cardboard cutout or has very little screen time, I don't count them unless they die. It's a little bit of a double standard, but if I didn't have a double standard, I'd have no standard at all. So on our survival list of survivalists is the creepy pervert Alfred, whose only excuse for surviving this movie is that it was written by a creepy pervert. Seriously, if they created a line of action figures for this movie, Alfred would include a tree for the figure to hide behind while lurking like a creepy pervert. We also have Dave and Tiger, who are on the raft that makes it back to the main camp, and then the 2 counselors Michelle and Todd, which means that out of a total of 15 characters, only 5 survive, which means that you have a 33.3% chance of surviving this movie. Given those odds, how would Cropsy cut your camping trip short? Let us know in the comments below.
Hey man, thanks again for helping me out here. Just one question though. What are you doing in my movie?
Ha, that's a great question. Here's a theory that I've been working on for the last couple months. Given what's happening in the world, I'm pretty sure that Frank is a prophet. Think about it. Friday the 13th of March, he banished me. That was literally a couple days before crap hit the fan. So Frank, being a prophet, saw what was coming, and because he didn't want to look like a wuss, made it appear that he was banishing me because of the mad crap I talk about Jason Voorhees. But in reality, it was just because he wanted to keep me safe. Think about it. I'm essential to mutantfam.com, so why wouldn't he want to keep me safe?
So he saved you from a real-world plague by zapping you into some of the most lethal movies ever put to film?
Yeah, well, I know it seems kind of counterintuitive, but hear me now!
Huh. Well, anyway, The Burning, while mostly competent, is a bit of a mixed bag. While I love the summer camp elements and think the Cine soundtrack and performances are all really solid, I just can't get away from the fact that that script is so heavy-handed on the perv side. Seriously, a quick re-edit to remove or reduce these scenes and I think, well, I still wouldn't be smitten with this one, but I'd certainly get on with it a lot more than I do. As it stands, I think if you're a 21st century guy or gal who has modern sensibilities, I believe the modern parlance is woke, you'll get hung up on the same things I did. If you don't care about that stuff, give this a go. You'll probably really get a hoot out of it. To close, it would be amiss of me not to mention this movie's rocky history of home releases in the UK. This was one of the Section 1 video nasties, as in the films they definitely didn't want you to see. It was originally released by Thorny MI, who put it out completely uncut by accident in 1982. Then when the prosecution started rolling in as the Mary Whitehouse Brigade began to bite back, they had to violently backpedal and recall all copies. Something that video shop owners really couldn't be arsed with. As a result, for a while there were 2 copies of The Burning in circulation, both pre-certs, both almost indistinguishable from each other, apart from one key difference. One version was cut by 10 seconds, the other version was completely uncut. How could you tell which was which? Well, on the tape itself, if you see a small stamp on the label that reads 24th of November 1982, you, my friend, have a cut version on your hands. The uncut version doesn't have that stamp. They only put the stamp on there so that if the police went to raid your video shop, the owner could prove that their copy was legal. Yep, this is how ridiculous things got in the early to mid-80s. Other than that, it had several cut versions before landing with Arrow Video, who finally put it out uncut on Blu-ray in 2016. Yes, this film wasn't released fully uncut in the UK until nearly 35 years after its initial release. But hey, that's bureaucracy for you. Anyway, thanks to Survivours Guilt for popping by. I think you can find a link to his channel at the end of this video and in the description below if you want to check him out, but I highly recommend you do. I'm going back into hibernation now. I'll see you lot in September. Take care.